Welcome to this week's episode of Lagnapod. I'm Rob Holbert, your host. Everybody else who's here, let them know.
I'm Ashley Trice.
Scott Johnson.
I'm Kyle Hamrick.
Tommy Hicks.
All right, we're all here.
Well, not every,
Brady's out on assignment.
Not.
He's taking care of his wife, who she's not feeling well. So
Here and all have our own microphones. Well, most of us.
almost all of us. Tommy doesn't
sharing
need
today.
one. Kyle and Tommy can share. So Scott, you are relatively fresh off of listening to the mayoral candidates at another debate last night, right?
Yeah. Packed house, man.
Packed
It was
house. You said it sounded like it was pretty full.
Dauphin Way United Methodist Church last night. The Historical Development Society.
By your guesstimation, there were 400 people there?
Yeah, I would actually say more than 400, but
More than 400?
if I say more, whatever. I think 400 is a safe number.
You think
So-
that feels like a real number?
It-
Okay.
Yeah, I was lucky to get a seat.
Yeah. So that went on last night. It was different from the last one in that they all they answered the same questions, correct?
Yeah. So they had each candidate up on the stage, and they had odd and even, and so they asked the questions to the odd group and then the even group.
I like that better, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was nice. Somehow they managed to put all the black candidates as the odds, though. So they all answered the same questions,
Yeah.
and all the white candidates answered the other ones. But anyway,
Interesting. Well, that's
Just
Mobile for you.
Coincidental.
That's
yeah, just
Mobile
coincidental.
for you.
I don't. Yeah,
Even in musical chairs, we have to break it down racially. So the questions also, unlike some of the other ones we've had, the questions have in the past have sort of veered into national politics, and these did not. Right? They stayed pretty local.
Oh yeah, this is very local. Very in the nitty gritty of the city.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking
Nitty gritty of the city.
Nitty gritty of the city.
oh,
Sounds
yeah.
like we got a song going.
I mean,
here.
city politics is all about, you get back into the garbage issues.
It's where the
and
rubber-
that's where the passion is.
It's where the rubber meets the road, man.
Exactly.
Drainage,
So
garbage.
lots of people, they asked about oak trees, and that was a passionate subject. People, a lot of candidates said we need to incentivize planting. Barbara Drummond, that was.
I mean,
just comes
these
off the top
oak
of my
trees are
head.
dropping bazillion acorns a year. I mean, how
I did. Well, they're
can't they
also
just
dropping
just
to the
leave 'em
ground.
alone?
Driving up Dauphin Street today, 2 giant ones were both getting removed that had fallen
Oak
during the
trees?
storm.
Yeah. Well, they do that occasionally.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. It's interesting because it's the historic society. So you're basically having to juggle this. We want to establish our historical identity, but then also we have to deal with our history, which is this aging infrastructure and aging everything. So it's like we like the good things of the history, but then we have a history and we need to update stuff.
Yeah,
So
our historical sewer system isn't great. Yeah. So it was. You thought it was a pretty feisty debate. I guess to call it a debate maybe isn't right, but a forum.
yeah, I like it's closer to a debate than what the other ones have been. I still want to debate. I want people to go after what the other people are saying. If they're lying, I want them to call them out. That'd be great. But there was more of the kind of like tit for tat thing, just a little bit. They had. You had Nodine taking a jab at Chiriagotis for Judge Chiriagotis for former judge, whatever. But yeah, for his comments in 2022, calling the actions of the mayor and Paul Prine childish. They basically were trying to blame the judges for the violent crime because they were releasing them on bond.
Right.
Well, meanwhile,
he slapped back as a judge, said, "Hey, this is childish."
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're constitutionally required to release these people on bond. Anyway, at the time, laws have changed now. But yeah, so it was Nodine took a jab at him for that. Spiro felt obligated to circle around at the end and kind of clarify it. And he's like, I stood up for the mayor. I stood up against the mayor and the police chief at that time, and I'm not afraid to stand up for the city. So I spin it at the end to make a point. So Spiro did really well. Everyone expects Spiro to do well. He's kind of like the lead candidate, I guess, with the endorsement from the mayor. Surprisingly, a lot of Nodine and Prine were sharp. I had heard from several people I spoke with after the meeting that they were surprised. I think a lot of people forget how sharp Nodine is, I guess, from all the controversy he's surrounded in. But yeah, he was a politician for a long time, and he can talk about issues. He's also charming and funny, so it also
be
he can
careful.
work a crowd.
So
So
you get beat up. Yeah, I mean, Steve is definitely somebody who he's not uncomfortable getting out and speaking in front of a group, and he's definitely had a lot of practice over the years. And I mean, he was a successful politician before all of his issues, all of his personal issues. So we got a poll today that was sent by one of the candidates, and it says that if I think this is an NBC 15 news poll, maybe, I don't know, but
yeah, it's
it listed No Dying as being the number one candidate that people would vote for.
Yeah, that was as of 12:55.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
he got 32% of the vote. He must have been busy voting. It was
last time I checked, Cherry Gotis was 28. He was 27.
Yeah, so it was early on in this thing. We got an early poll. So that is, I mean, these are not scientific. I mean, we did one. It wasn't scientific. They're not scientific. I mean, they are little snapshots of what viewers or readers are doing. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, was anybody there? You thought No Dying did pretty well. I think you said Paul Prine had some answers that he hasn't had in the past. He talked about some things like blight downtown and some other things.
Very familiar with the historical process. He even brought up the fact that, the Historical Commission's website hasn't been updated since 2023. So he's been digging into that issue. Jump back a couple of weeks ago, he kind of gave us a non-answer on the blight in downtown. Right. He seems like he's gotten himself up to speed and dug in. He also confirmed that he is living full-time at his house, as he has been since March 1st.
Was that a question or what?
I asked him afterwards. So he was thrilled about that. And I guess he's a Lagnapod listener because he said, y'all drive by my house every day. You should know.
So, not every day, just once in a while. That's what we do. That's verification. That's some of the stuff we have to do.
It's part of the game.
He said he's definitely going to buy a home if he's elected, and might buy a home regardless. But I did ask him.
Well, it's a good idea if you're mayor.
Yeah. So he did mention the fact that it's very convenient to live down here while you're constantly down here. So.
Yeah, if you're running the city, it would be a good idea.
Yeah,
that's just my thought. It'd be good for the mayor.
Technically,
to live in the city.
I guess he does. He has till the end of qualifying to be a resident.
Yes.
So June 26th. I think.
And then, so I think also it sounded like most of them did pretty well. Most of them, acquitted themselves pretty well last night. I think you said Barbara Drummond did fairly well as well. She had a good evening.
Yeah, her points on homelessness. Couldn't find a spot to fit this in my story, but her points on homelessness had a pretty loud reaction from the crowd. So I think it resonated with people. She's a very charismatic speaker, so she can definitely riff on stuff, and people really liked what she had to say on the homelessness.
What did she say?
Basically, it was very, we cannot criminalize homelessness. Running down the points, but just in an emphatic way,
Yeah.
And the other candidates had good things to say. I would say Burrell came off as rehearsed, and that was, at least that's how it came off to me. And then Batiste, he had good things to say, but nothing really stuck or landed.
Yeah.
And then I just don't think Connie is good in these formats. I don't.
Connie Hudson,
I'm sorry,
County Commissioner.
Thank
Connie
you.
Hudson, yes.
Connie, she I guess she read off of cards during the last forum. Mm-hmm. Now she didn't do that this time, so but just the energy or the tone there just kind of seemed like she was trudging along. But yeah, it was enjoyable to go to. I think a lot of people were appreciative that it happened.
Yeah,
so.
Like I said last time we talked about this, it is very difficult to run a forum with 7 people and to even get enough time for people to have a comment or to make a statement that is.
I think what ought to be done, I was thinking about this, is to have like South Alabama do a poll and have the top 4 engage.
Yeah.
Because it's just, if you wait until, you're never going to be able to get a good debate with all 7 of them.
Yeah, well, it's tough. And I mean, normally we don't have this many people involved in a mayoral competition. So it's going to be hard for.
And you may see some drop out,
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, not to be too critical, but I mean, Batiste just he just seems to have very little traction at this point. Not really bringing any money, not really bringing much interest. It doesn't seem, I think there's a couple of them that really don't have very much chance at all. But, that's just me sitting back here looking at it. I don't know that people could show up and vote for them.
Yeah.
But, we're going to, obviously, once it's whittled down to 2, there'll be a lot more opportunity to have actual debates and discussions about what they're doing. But, I think that I don't know if there's another one coming up anytime soon or not, but, it's something we'll just keep looking at it and keep talking to them about the issues at hand.
Yeah. Go read the story. You can read about drainage and pipes. And
there's a lot of stuff there. Oak trees.
No garbage this time. But
I just hit some epic hole on Catherine Street today that I was like, oh my God, I think just exploded.
The giant pothole that was in Dolphin Street for, it seemed like a year, it seems to be making its way back. That massive one over right near Catherine Street. Yeah.
The only time I just sometimes remind myself just how bad New Orleans streets are, and then I feel a little.
Yeah, that always makes me feel better when I go to New Orleans. I'm like, well, it's more like the surface of the moon than Mobile is. Yes, it's definitely that.
There's slightly less terrible.
Yeah.
One of the things that set Nodine and Prying apart, in my opinion, was that their ability to be funny. That was Prying said something to the extent of what's the point of driving down Dolphin Street if by the time you get to I-65 your car's falling apart, and that kind of laughing roar.
Yeah.
Nodine said, he was in the middle of making a point. I've been a commissioner so long, and I've been dealing with these issues, and someone's phone was going off at the same time. And it's like, I've also dealt with people's phones turned on during a debate, which also got a funny, good response. So the humor is definitely can get you some places.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that they at least can laugh at themselves or laugh at the situation a little bit. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to talk to Tommy Hicks about our cover story this week, a young lady who is dominating the track and field world. We'll be right back. And we are back. You have a cover story today on a young lady who is just absolutely dominating track and field in our area. But there's also a couple other good stories to get to as well in our sports world. But tell us a little bit about Janie Ford.
Janie Ford, man, she's had an amazing career. Just finished up her senior year at St. Paul's in track and field. It started when she was a lot younger, her freshman year. She's just been a standout ever since. She's won 20 individual state titles in her career.
That's insane.
And it's a mixture of things. She's long jump, triple jump.
Yeah.
She does hurdles. She does some distance running, 400 meter, 800 meter, that sort of thing. Just a little bit of everything. And now she's a 3-time heptathlon champion.
I was amazed when reading your story about this, that in winning this latest heptathlon, she was determined. I mean, she was going to win it, clearly, right? Clearly. But she was determined to set the most points ever, right? And in order to do so, she had to run a record-breaking 800 meter, right?
Yes.
So did she set a state record on that as well?
It was what it was, she ran it in 2 minutes, 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's insane.
I can't drive it that fast.
It is the best time in the state this year.
Right. Okay.
For that.
Yes.
But what had happened was the event before.
Not just in the heptathlon, right?
This is just in the heptathlon.
Just the heptathlon. Yeah. Okay. So
she had already won like 3 events. Right. And last year, she won all but 1 event in the heptathlon. Her first year she won it, she set a new scoring record.
Right.
Last year, she won it again, broke her own scoring record. So her whole goal was, okay, let's break
keep it going. Right.
Let's keep it going. So when she goes into the javelin was the event prior to the 800, and she finished 14th, which she said, I just
out of 56 or something like that.
She threw it 82 feet.
Yeah. Okay.
And she said,
not her best.
Not good. He said, I just had a horrible, outing.
Yeah.
And then right after that, she's got to go to the 800.
Right.
And it's like, she said, I know this is going to hurt.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it all I got. And I'm just going to try to, and her mother Camille is her coach. And even her mother said, I couldn't believe the times that she was going. You know how people keep track of your splits.
Right.
You know what you're doing, why you're doing. Well, at the time that the 800 in the women in the heptathlon was going on, the javelin was going on for the decathlon for the guys.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Ford couldn't really run around the infield to get to where she needed to get. So other coaches were helping her. The Vestavia coach would call out a split at one area and another coach told her. So they kept up with it that way. And she just kind of like, her mother said, I've never seen you that gassed ever at the end of an event. And she broke that and ended up breaking the record again, which was just amazing.
Yeah, she's a pretty amazing athlete, obviously, and has a big future ahead of her.
She does. She's headed to Vanderbilt University. She's going to be
sounds like a pretty good school.
Obviously on the track team there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
pretty good school.
And academically,
they do okay. Yeah.
And so I just think there are big things ahead for her. I asked her if she thought, had given any thought to Olympics, and she said, well, yeah, I mean, you think about that. She said, but I'm a step-by-step person, and I don't, it was really interesting what she says, that I just want to get past the first semester at Vanderbilt and get acclimated to everything, and then, then we'll see where things go from there. But just an amazing career. She won 4 individual events in this past outdoor, and 3 of them were state records.
That's amazing.
She set 2 state records in the indoor this year. So it's just been, just an amazing career for her.
That's fascinating. And it sounds like she's...
And I'm sorry, I missed this whole segment, but I do want to say it's one of my favorite cover images.
I do too. It's a great shot. Yeah, it is a good one.
And I'll give a shout out to Jay Crenshaw, who's the staff photographer for St. Paul's. But
there's a great inside shot too. There's some really good stuff. Black and white shots, fantastic too. It looks like a Nike ad almost, but it's really good stuff. Well, and then we also have Orange Beach had
Orange Beach. 5th straight year they won the softball state championship, which is amazing because that's all they've ever done. At the end of every season, they've won a state championship because they weren't an official team until 21, when they had mostly 7th and 8th grade players.
Yeah.
And just think about it. There's 4 seniors that graduated. 2 of them have been on the team since that 21 team, and the other 2 came in the second year.
Yeah.
So they've all been together, and there's another 5 or 6 that are juniors this year that were 7th graders on that first team that will be seniors next year, including Ava Hodo, who is the number 1 ranked player nationally in that recruiting class for softball.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty fascinating. And then we also have some golf news.
Frances Brown just keeps being Frances Brown. She's UMS Wright golfer. She won her individual state championship again for the 4th straight year, which set a record. No one has ever done that before. And what's really interesting is her 5th year, her 8th grade year, she was a runner-up in individual. So
we got some amazing,
great career,
amazing young ladies who are athletes around here. That's phenomenal. That is just amazing stuff.
Good stuff. I mean, it just shows you kind of the depth of talent. You're looking at Orange Beach or your St. Paul's and UMS. And, you've got all these other teams that did well St. Paul's baseball team made it to the championship series. Sarah Land's softball team made it to the championship game in their classification. So, we've got a lot of really good, talented athletes in this area.
Very well represented locally. Thanks, Tommy. Appreciate it. And we're going to take a quick break, y'all. We'll be right back. And we are back. We've got some more news. This whole thing about the thin layer placement of dredge spoils in the bay, it's kind of heated back up again. I know that we had State Senator Chris Elliott brought it up on the floor of the legislature last week. Then there was a meeting last week as well with Baykeeper had down in Theodore near the bay, and I know you went to that, Scott. And they broke out kind of a plan. They have a new plan basically to defund the Corps in a way. Yeah.
If y'all remember, the initial kind of flare up here was a threatened lawsuit involving sturgeon They claim the surgeon were being hurt by thin layer placement,
right,
or what they've coined mud dumping. So you have to maintain the channel that they've got here for shipping. Right. That involves digging out year round, digging out mud,
maintenance,
silt.
dredging. Yes, everything flows back into the hole in the middle of the bay, right. And so they got to go back in there and dredge it back out to keep it.
How often do they do?
They're doing it year round.
Yeah, like daily.
Yes, they will dredge all the time, all year long, just all the time, forever and ever. Amen. Yes.
And then
it's so crazy that it settles so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, you've got erosion coming off of the land. You've got the stuff falling back in from the bottom.
There's a tremendous amount of current and wave action and all sorts of stuff going on out there. It's just so you've the concept that there's just it's all sitting there and it's going to go. So I mean everybody got fired up about a video when they saw this hopper dredge blowing this mud back into the bay. The concept of thin layer placement. I mean, it sounds like you're just setting it down on a pillow and it's going to be right there. But when people saw that, I think you look at it and see, and blowing the stuff out into waves and there's all this stuff going on. You're like, how can you really be very surgical about this strike?
So what they do is they've got areas down the channel and they rotate where they go.
Right.
And anyway, they use this hopper and this whole swivel thing. So they swivel the arm out and it sprays, and the video shows it spraying this black mud. And
it's kind of like a sprinkler across the yard.
Yeah,
that's my sprinkler.
Very
sound.
Interesting process, and for someone who's doesn't exactly understand what's happening, it looks really weird and it looks like it's hurtful. I think the context there. And Baykeeper wants this to stop. That's why they're calling on this to stop. They want all this to be either stored in the upland containment stuff on these islands, or they just want to ship off
or some of those places.
Shipped off into the Gulf and dumped there, or beneficial use projects for restoring habitats, which I think everyone agrees that they would be okay with doing. But so previously, when it was banned, the Corps had been doing something called side casting, where you dredge, and what the dredges would do would just turn and dump it up in the side of the channel.
Basically dump it right alongside the channel.
So you have these massive,
so it just falls right back in.
Which is very harmful, and everyone agrees was very harmful and inefficient, because you just
counterproductive
immediately goes back in. So anyway, that is compared to what they're doing now is in contrast to side casting, which was just
originally though, when they first started back in the early 80s, the original study they did on this, the Corps had a study that said it was best to take it out to the Gulf and dump it in deep water.
Yeah.
And that changed. I guess they started about 2012, I think, doing this, the thin layer placement, sort of without really telling anybody they were doing it. It was sort of just happened. And then
that was an emergency order after a hurricane, right?
Yeah, and it just never stopped. And then
they started studies, and
they did a study, and then they decided, in the middle of this study, there's a tiny bit of language in the middle of this big document that says we're going to do this now, and so
anyway.
And it happens to also be much cheaper for the Corps. I'm just saying, for both sides, they have had both sides of their studies have said it's better for the bay to do it one way. It's better for the bay to do it this way.
Yeah.
And so now we're on the thin layer placement is better for the bay, so it doesn't rob the bay of sediments.
Yeah. A lot of context here. Anyway, back to the main point. It takes a lot of context because it's so quirky.
It is. It's a lot.
But essentially, those negotiations with the Corps, the discussions aren't going anywhere.
Right.
I mean, because it boils down to a disagreement of the science, and I don't know how you get past that. Like, your science is wrong. Well, no, it's not. Right?
Right.
You're gridlock. Now they're moving to essentially go over the head of the Corps and
that's their hope. Yes,
go over the head over the Port Authority who's administering the projects, and they've built up, like you mentioned, Chris Elliott. They've built up this political capital. Surprisingly, with these Alabama conservatives, you've got the Alabama's pro tem said he's voicing his support of the project. You got Katie Britt weighing on it, and then we revealed over last week during the meeting. I mean, they've even sat down with Tommy Tuberville, and he said, "I'm 100% behind you guys." So they've generated a whole bunch of support. And
can I just say how surprised I am by that? I mean, it really it really flies in the face of everything we've ever seen around here. I mean, it's generally when it's big business, big industry, everybody says, we don't care.
Well, I mean, ask these same people about coal ash.
No, you can't get a comment out of them for coal ash. They just, I think Alabama Power's doing a great job, whatever it is. But this is surprising to see people, usually elected people around here, if it has anything to do with, if there's $10 to be made out of it, then that's fine. But in this circumstance, it does seem like there's a lot of folks who are lining up and saying, this doesn't seem right. We don't want to see the bay destroyed or significantly harmed in this regard. So, but the concept of basically cutting them off at the knees financially, that's an interesting
you
way
could
to do
go
it.
through the budget process and just, basically cut out the line item. Hey, we're not going to give you money to do this practice anymore, and then they can't do it. So
but they got to do something.
Yeah, and then they alternatively
do some dredging.
Yeah, they alternatively want to fund the
upland disposal and all that.
Disposals and beneficial use programs. We also found out that the money dedicated or announced by Katie Britt last year, this was interesting because she announced $47 million for dredge studies and surveys.
Yeah.
But it happened like hours before Baykeeper's meeting. Like it was definitely a kind of like a PR timing thing. But we found out at this meeting that money has basically essentially just disappeared, been wiped off because of the administration change. So it's they want to find money. They think it's they argue anything to do is pennies on the dollar compared to what's happening.
Yeah, well, we'll see where it goes. This thing's heating up a lot right now. Gotta sound like RFK there for a minute. It's really, really heating up. Other things heating up: coyotes.
The coyotes are being shipped
out of control.
Daphne.
The coyotes.
Folks are scared. Folks are really scared.
It's an issue everywhere around here. Coyotes have been a problem. I mean, people are complaining about it constantly. I was asked at a talk I gave last week. People are like, "When are y'all doing a story on coyotes?" And now
here's you one of them.
Now here's you one of them. Here's one. Coyotes are being moved out of Daphne.
Yep. The city council signed off on a $4,000 contract to get this company to round up all these running rampant, blood-curdling coyotes.
That seems cheap to get rid of coyotes.
Yeah, I mean, because
how many do you get for that? Is
I know.
That unlimited cat.
I know.
Yes,
I
mean, I guess it's just as many as 4,000 per dozen till they get up to 4,000.
The first time I ever saw a coyote in my entire life was on Fort Morgan.
Yeah,
I never had seen a coyote until I was on Fort Morgan one day. That was years ago.
On Secure Reserve down there.
Yeah. But they're all over the place, and
they're a mess. They are all over the place. And the mayor of Daphne told me, this is just speculation on his part, but he said that possibly the latest influx of coyotes in Daphne could be coming from Fairhope.
He thinks these are Fairhope coyotes.
These are Fairhope.
They were in golf carts or what? Were they driving golf carts?
They were wearing their Fairhope shirts. They had a drink from Mr. Jean's Beans, and they had come up from the Flying Creek Nature Park that they're clearing out. That's just his theory.
That's a theory.
But there were some concerned women who spoke to the city council and said that they're scared to go out at night. They don't want to let their pets out. Cats have been taken. One dog has been killed.
I'll be honest with you. When I walk my little dog out at night, I mean, I stay close to her because I'm worried a coyote's going to come out and snatch her up.
Yeah. One woman asked, what can the city do to teach us how to keep ourselves safe so we don't become food for a coyote?
Well, that's so the city should have a program of some sort.
Tell her to read my column this week. I addressed this.
Yes. Ashley, look these things up.
Because what are you supposed to do?
Ashley, what is the coyote advice?
The coyote advice is that you are to make yourself appear bigger.
Yes.
Okay.
And you scream loudly at it.
Yes. You yell at the coyote.
Yes. And you can throw sticks around it, near it, but do not hit it.
Can you run into a painted on tunnel and then and disappear through there, and the coyote will smash into it, or an anvil upside the head?
An anvil from the Acme.
Any number of Acme products are available.
Yes.
No. What I did ask AI, I was like, who would win between a human and a coyote? Who would win that that battle or whatever, and it was like a human has an excellent chance of beating a coyote as long as it's a single coyote. Now, if it gets its friends involved,
if you got a pack. If you got a pack on you, that's trouble.
That'd be a problem.
But one coyote, just go for it.
Yeah. So if you got one coyote, just start windmilling.
Yeah.
Just go at it.
The people's elbow.
But if just drop the knee, drop the atomic knee on it. Do whatever you need to do.
Do what you got to do.
Come on, coyote.
I actually saw a statistic that said that dogs are 2 times more likely to attack you than a coyote.
I would imagine that because there's not as many coyotes around. And,
that's
like that. That's like a statistic. Like you're more likely to get attacked in 3 feet of water by a shark because most people aren't swimming in 1,000 feet of water because you're definitely going to get attacked out there.
That's fair.
That's a good but what I loved about this too is like, the owls are attacking everyone too. And for the owls, you're supposed to like spread your arms and like do wing motions.
They're pretty much, the owls are just like, take it. You're not allowed to do anything to the owls.
Be the owl. I have
become
to tell
the owl.
You become the owl.
I actually ran into an owl on Lafayette Street near McGill, and I started to hoot at it. It got mad at me.
You didn't hoot loud enough, obviously.
I didn't hoot loud enough.
You got to work on your hooting. You should have broken out your little tiny scissors there and
while you're
yourself.
It clipped its wings.
And the poor people up in St. Leonard and Satsuma, they deal with the bears up there constantly, and you're supposed to calmly talk to them. Yeah. So you scream at coyotes and whisper sweet nothings.
But if it's a black bear.
Only if it's a black bear.
If it's a grizzly bear,
you play dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You fight with a black bear, but AI says you're probably going to die if you fight with a bear.
Fight a black bear.
Yeah, I would not fight with a bear. Yeah, don't fight with a bear. Yeah, that's what we needed that one. Thanks.
Have y'all seen the arguments? Who would win? 100 people or a bear?
Or
a gorilla?
It's
a
gorilla versus 100 men.
It's the height of stupidity. But yes, but
I'm kind of curious though.
There's only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Anyway, now that we're off on that, I think, it depends on who it is.
Silverback.
Well, I think at least in Daphne, they'll be safe once these coyotes are moved out.
But for Mobile, it's a different story.
We have no real coyote plan here in Mobile yet.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of, they're running rampant right now.
Take it over the city, man.
Who knows?
And then remove that gator out of Langham Park.
Yeah, they're going to boot him.
But I think the next mayor, this coyote issue is going to be one that lands on his or her desk.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right, folks.
Drop by now.
That's all we got this week. We're going to be back next Thursday with the next episode of Lagnapod. Thanks for listening.
The Lagnapod is a Something Extra publishing production. Executive producers are Rob Holbert and Ashley Trice. Music is by Sunpole Sounds and Electro Animals. Only subscribers like you have access to this podcast. Tell your friends they can sign up at my.lanyapmobile.com. For advertising opportunities, please call 251-450-4466.